Councillor Brooks Hill, seconded by Councillor Juncker. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Going to adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 8th, 2020. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councillor Brooks Hill, Councillor Juncker, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes of December 8th? Seeing none, I'm just going to move on to announcements for the mayor. Jaylene, I'm just going to ask you to turn your camera on for a moment, if you don't mind. So most of you will notice Jaylene, she's in my top right corner. She's our new executive assistant. Jaylene comes to us from West Kelowna. She's been working with the city of West Kelowna, prior to that, the district of West Kelowna. So I just want to say welcome, Jaylene. Appreciate you being here. And if you haven't met all of council, they are in front of you at this point. So I just want to welcome you and take this time to thank you for deciding to come to Revelstoke. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
So the other announcement that I have, just that we have an election now scheduled for February 13th with 2 advance polls on the 3rd and 10th of February. We are also going to have mail ballots. So I just encourage people without having to do physical distancing, they can just encourage people to do the mail ballots. We're going to have some advertising come out as to where you can apply and how you can apply for your mail-in ballots, and that should be coming out by the end of the week. That's all I have for announcements. So we're going to go right into delegations. Ben von Nostrand from the CSRD is here to make a presentation to us. Ben, thank you for taking up some time to give to us to fill us in on the kitchen waste project or the composting project. So I'll let you take it away. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, I was asked a while back to put something together just to chat about where the CSRD is going in terms of food waste management for Revelstoke, and then took the liberty to tack on a few things, including where we're at with the province in terms of compliance, where we're at with our operations, a little bit of, and I don't think that I can advance the slide, so I'm probably already jumping into my, maybe someone can give me control or advance one slide. Is that possible?
Jaylene?
Ben, at the top.
Okay.
Ben, at the top, do you have the option to request control?
Uh,
Try to share your screen. Should be a box with an arrow in it.
I don't see it.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, my computer. Is that working for you, Ben?
Now I don't have the presentation.
I can certainly bring it up.
How's that, Ben? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's great. If we can go next slide, if you can just advance them, I think that's probably the easiest. Thank you.
Sure.
So yeah, just talking about operations at the landfill. And then I wanted to provide just a sense of what alternatives might look like. We did an exercise for Golden that I think we could, the numbers are probably fairly similar for Revelstoke. And then I'll just touch on the playbook that we developed at the request of one of the area directors, just to provide a sense of roles and responsibilities when it comes to solid waste in the CSRD, and then happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Next slide. I can't advance it, so I'm waiting for Jaylene. Sorry.
Is that the
yeah.
slide you're looking for?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so what are our plans for 2021? So as you're probably hearing in the community, there is, we have done some work around food waste. We were talking to businesses in 2019. We had some funds to do that. We also have the ability to charge a different tipping fee. So if food waste is marketable, i.e. If there's a proper treatment disposal option for food waste, and folks are continuing to put it out in their garbage, then we have the ability to charge the mixed refuse rate. So it would go from $80 a ton to $240 a ton. We envision a very slow rollout, taking exactly what we did here in Salmon Arm, where we met with businesses, explained this, and in time I think we have a very high participation rate right now in Salmon Arm with the businesses sending food waste to us now separately. Of course, the long-term vision would be that Revelstoke would implement a curbside food waste collection program. And I don't have any sort of plans to implement those high tipping fees on the city. That doesn't make sense to me. I would hope that through the work that Caitlin Hinton is doing for you folks, and maybe public pressure, that the food waste, there'll be a bit of a demand to get some kind of program going within the community, because the biggest bang for your buck is getting all the residents on board through a curbside type collection program. Next slide. Can we go back a couple slides? I feel like I missed one. Yeah. Okay, so next slide. Sorry. So jumping back one slide, I sort of have this field of dreams mentality. If we build it, the food waste will come. We got provincial funding to build a facility at the Revelstoke landfill. We also have some community works funds that we've tapped into in the past to carry out construction. In 2019, we engaged Borset Engineering to design the facility. And in 2020, we awarded a contract to build to Absolute Contracting. And we are very mindful of the organic matter recycling regulation, and we've hired a consultant to prepare the operational plans, as well as the notifications under that regulation, which we'll be submitting before the end of January. Okay, so next slide. And then next slide. And so here's just where we're at in terms of construction. This is at the south site. As you folks know, we have two sites of the landfill. The north is basically where refuse is managed, and the south is where all of our recycling programs are housed. And this facility sits at the eastern sort of boundary of that particular parcel. And so we're well underway. I understand from Absolute that they're finishing up the roof and looking to install that probably late January or early February. So next slide. Now, just before I go, that facility, the food waste is managed in bins in those concrete bunkers. There'll be aeration that comes up through. There'll be an odor management system. And so we're also looking to work with SCORE Construction if we need to manage bears in a more significant manner. That whole site is fenced and electric fenced, but if we need to do more than that, we will certainly look at doing that. So like I say, the site is fenced, and we'll see how it goes. I just wanted to provide this sort of example of Salmon Arm's program. So they implemented a curbside program July 1st, where every resident got a food waste toter. They went from garbage every week to garbage every 2 weeks. Food waste is collected every week, and recycling is collected every second week. And as you can see from the numbers, they're now diverting 62% of what's generated at the household level. So the food waste piece is added to 33% diversion to the overall waste management stream for Salmon Arm. So a pretty successful rollout. We haven't had wildlife issues or complaints of any sort of substantive nature. It's been really smooth, and I suspect that the residents are taking full advantage of it. And in the trial that we did prior to the rollout of the program, we actually saw the amount of waste being collected increase because folks were moving away from using their backyard composters because the cart out to the end of your driveway is just so much more convenient. So it's been a very successful program here in Salmon Arm. Next slide. So that's the bit on the food waste. Like I say, our plans are to get in with the businesses this summer and try and move them to a system of diverting food waste. We are talking with some contractors about supplying those types of bins and trying to get that food waste headed to our facility. In terms of the landfill, we have had some compliance issues. I think your mayor has been more involved because he sits at our board table, but we have been working with the province to try and resolve those. We had about 12 compliance issues in 2019. We've just recently received the June inspection report that was done in 2020. We received that just before Christmas. We still have compliance issues with litter and groundwater issues. We also have compliance issues with the septic receiving facility, which apparently the province didn't authorize back when the permit was amended in 2011. And I mean, we weren't even aware of that. And we've been managing that system for years now, and the site has been inspected, and it's never been an issue until this most recent inspection report, which has caused us to move towards likely having to shut those lagoons down until we have authorization. And I guess on that front, we applied to amend our authorization in March last year to revise groundwater monitoring, to revise a whole bunch of things to sort of make it easier for us to meet the compliance division's sort of requirements. And so we're at the point now where we're looking to publish that new document in the coming weeks. The province is just putting the finishing touches on it, and that will include the option to manage septic waste there. So there may be a bit of a pause, and I'm having to reach out to some of the local haulers just to make sure that we're not sort of putting them at risks of their business. So I guess we have to manage that over the next couple of weeks, but it kind of came out of left field. In terms of operations, we have extended the amount of litter fencing that we've installed over the years. That was done last year. We have closed off phase 1, and so we've done intermediate cover, and we have in the budget to do an actual full closure of phase 1, which will include some gas management works. And so that sort of tender type process will go out probably May and June when budgets are approved. And like I mentioned, we did submit all of our documents to amend authorizations in the spring of 2020 and are just now sort of at the point of completing that. So next up. Just a couple of pictures of the side slope work that we did, reshape things, and we'll be looking to completely close phase 1 out in 2021. Next up. Just looking back, sort of the road that we established. And yeah, some grass that was planted starting to take along that, I guess, eastern slope. Next, yeah. And so this just shows that sort of the north end at the top of the screen, the large red area was the amount that we've been concentrating on filling, and we are now up to grade. So that whole sort of mountain to the north, that's the part that we're looking to completely cover and close as per the guidelines from the province. And we're now down more in there's a spot that we're filling up on the sort of the western slope to tie into phase 2. And as you can see from the table, we're in the phase development. So phase 1 we finished off. That was sort of supposed to be done in last year, so we're kind of on track there. And then phase 2, we estimate that we have until 2025, and then we'll be looking to close that phase off. Next slide. I just wanted to provide this because sometimes it's easy to sort of think about closing the landfill and moving it because nobody really wants a landfill in their backyard. We did this exercise for Golden. It's a little bit, I guess, alarming in that the tipping fees to cover the costs of, let's say, closing the landfill and moving it out to a new part of the electoral area B. Using the Golden example, the tipping fee would be $640 a ton. So it's something that we can do, but we have to sort of keep in the back of my mind that it costs a lot of money. And even to implement the upgrades and changes in Golden that are required under the new operational certificate, our tipping fees should be at $136 a ton, and we're currently at 80. So we are going to look at our tipping fees more broadly in 2021. And this certainly isn't to scare anybody, it's just fact. I mean, this report was posted on the website for folks in Golden. I can certainly, it's there for everybody, but it sort of provides a sense of, what the reality is of moving a landfill and finding a new site. And it really, to me, points to making sure that we're managing the existing one as best we can and trying to squeeze out as much life out of it as we can. Next slide. And this last couple slides, just around, I had a request from one of the area directors to kind of go through and explain the roles and responsibilities. And so when we look at solid waste, the ministry is the regulatory body. They issue the authorization that sort of approves our plans to manage solid waste, our operational certificates to manage the actual site, the plans that we develop that, say how we're going to manage that site. So all of that gets submitted to the province, and that's their piece. That's the authorizations division. They also have a division called compliance, which goes out and does inspections. And unfortunately, they don't seem to communicate maybe as much as would be beneficial. Sometimes compliance doesn't know where we're at with authorizations and vice versa, which makes it a little bit frustrating for us to deal with them. But we are trying to improve those relationships, and I think we have made some strides. Okay, next slide. And then these are sort of the CSRD's bit of it is to make sure that we're on top of annual reports and making sure our plans are submitted and up to date, which they are all now. Trying to maintain compliance with the operational certificate, which has been a bit of a challenge with the new compliance regime. If we have one plastic bag in the trees, it seems that we're out of compliance with our operational certificate. And so if we have birds or a wind storm come through and we have the inspectors on site, I mean, that is the level of detail that they seem to be holding us to, which is, if you've been to that site on a windy day, I'm not making excuses, but that's just a fact. And we are on our contractors to do more litter pickups. I think the site is looking a lot better, but the level where we need to be at is a bit of a challenge. We manage 4 landfills, 12 transfer stations, lots of recycling depots. So all that, the management of recycling and solid waste, that's the CSRD. And then next slide. The city, really, like the member municipalities, your guys' sort of piece is to make sure that the materials from the curb are getting to the landfill and responding to complaints around, what happens with that curbside program. And then really the issues around the landfill should be sent to the CSRD and put on us to try and manage. And I know we have one neighbor in particular that seems to stir the pot a little bit, and rightly or wrongly fans those emails out, and just know that we are responsive to his concerns and try and manage the site as best we can. Next slide. Yeah, I think that's all for me. I'd like to thank you for my time to be able to talk about these, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about anything discussed or anything else sort of top of mind when it comes to recycling and solid waste.
Great. Jaylene, can you just take off that thing, and then I can see all of the council? Awesome. All right, any questions? I'm hearing an echo from me. Is it coming out okay, or is it an echo?
Good here.
Okay. So Ben, thank you. I appreciate you coming today. I know Councillor Elliott was curious as to what was happening with the compost recycling and how that was moving forward, and with some of the issues at the landfill. So I think you've spoken about that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you're dealing with the concerns and the complaints and the issues as far as compliance. I appreciate that. So, councillors, any questions? Councillor Elliott, I'll ask if you've got anything to go first.
Just maybe on the food waste facility. That's just judging by the pictures. Maybe it doesn't do it justice, but is that big enough for a community our size? If every household did their composting, it doesn't strike me as it looks like it's adequate enough. But maybe that's your call.
No, I'm hoping that our engineers and consultants that we've paid a lot of money for have that's their expertise, and that's sort of the design that they have provided us, and we're sort of marching forward on that basis with estimates of what could potentially come our way if a curbside program was introduced to the community. Mm-hmm. I believe that we do have the capacity to carry out those programs.
Mm-hmm. And when do you start initiation? When is it? Do you foresee this thing getting underway?
I'm hoping to start having food waste come our way this summer.
Summer, okay.
And I'll preface that by saying, again, we're starting with the business community. We hope to build momentum there. It's not my call to impose anything on your guys' operations in terms of implementing a curbside program. That would be up to Darren and Caitlin and your staff to sort of contemplate. I know that there's some issues there with trucks and bear bins, and there's a lot of sort of hoops to jump through. It's just, we'll have a facility there, and I hope that eventually we can get the city's curbside materials separated and the food waste coming our way.
May I carry on, Gary? Or
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, how late are we to this game? I mean, I'm just curious what other communities have been doing, or what. I mean, I was in Calgary. This was going 10 years ago or more.
I don't think we're late to the game. I mean, as you move away from the Lower Mainland, we're always a little bit behind, but I would argue that the CSRD is ahead of the game. I know the Okanagan, they haven't made plans to do food waste diversion. The city of Salmon Arm is one of the only ones that's really up and running. The Kootenays has made some strides there. They're pretty green in terms of getting programs going. So I think we're right on track. And you can tell really from the ministry that it's a big push for them because they're putting kind of money where their mouth is. And they were really excited to see pictures of a facility being built in Revelstoke because we're actually sort of doing something with that money. There's infrastructure going into the ground, and they're using that as an example when they present to their staff and justifying the expenditures around that grant money. So I think we're right. We're right on track.
Okay. I know the vision statement for Revelstoke for the last 10 years, since '97 or whatever, 20 years, has been to be a leader in environmental sustainability. I mean, this is an obvious step in that direction, but it seems late in coming to me.
I can't really comment on that.
I know.
These things take time, and I'm just excited to. I mean, the solid waste management plan was adopted in 2015. That was really identified food waste as a priority, and so those are my marching orders from the communities across the CSRD. And Salmon Arm was first because we had a facility existing. We had a private facility that was chomping at the bit to get food waste out of the waste stream. So that was a pretty easy one. When you have to put infrastructure into the ground, I think is a little tougher. But like I say, I fully am committed to rolling out this summer, diverting food waste from the business community, and I hope that the community will get on board and put some pressure on the powers that be, you folks, that can make these tough decisions.
And just one more question on the greenhouse. I mean, the food waste is probably the second behind the automobile as the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases. Mm-hmm. Do you foresee a big a reduction in our greenhouse? Can we go after funding from the federal government or provincial for some extra incentive or monetizing the expenditures or put some money towards it?
what I will say on that front is it's probably not something that you can monetize. However, you're likely aware that the city has to report out on their carbon reduction, carbon management issues.
Yes.
When it comes to greenhouse gases. And so the province has developed a very easy tool to calculate what food diversion amounts to, and you can use those offsets to reduce your corporate emissions. And so the city of Salmon Arm has taken advantage of that. All the tons that they're diverting, they then calculate what that is in terms of emissions reduction and are using that to work towards that goal of being carbon neutral.
Yes, yeah, that's what I think there's opportunity there. So.
Yep.
Good. All right, Councillor Charlotte.
Great, thank you. Let's get that down. Yeah, it sounds exciting. I'm stoked to see this come forward and see progress being made. I'm also glad to hear that the province is watching and liking the fact that we're spending money on this. I'm curious about the timeline. How long do we have before the site will be ready for curbside pickup from households?
Well, when we're ready to take food waste, we'll be ready for whatever. So, like I said, this summer, we still have a couple of pieces of equipment, and we're looking into, we need to run power out to the site. So all of that stuff is budgeted for. And
Okay.
like I say, my goal is to be up and running this summer. And so once we're open, we can take whatever can come our way.
Okay, great. So that's pretty quick then. And I'm wondering, we've been talking a while about curbside pickup options. It's been bounced around. I'm wondering, Your Worship, if this is a good topic to refer to the Environmental Advisory Committee for further discussion and discussing what possibilities could come forward for the city.
Absolutely, I think it's a good thing to go to them and get some input, and then we'll have to go to our engineering department to talk about our involvement as far as moving food waste.
Yeah, well, the Environmental Advisory Committee is hosted by Mr. Black from the engineering department. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think it would be a good fit.
Perfect. Good. Well, let's actually get them involved.
Perfect. Is that something we need an official referral for, a resolution?
Ms. Lowe, I don't know whether we need an official thing. I think we can just get the environmental group to give some input, but I'll look to you for input, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Charlotte, what exactly would the resolution be? What are you suggesting?
Direction to, see, and this is where I put, whether it's the next step is taking it to staff to come up with some ideas to bring to the EAC, or if it goes to, for them to then check over and come make some suggestions to council. I'm just trying to figure out what the smoothest process for this so we can move it along quickly.
So right now, this is with Caitlin Hitton in the engineering department. So she's creating the climate action plan, and we need to identify the targets. So that's what Caitlin's doing right now. So it will come through her, through Steve, Mr. Black, and he'll bring it to the environmental committee. And yeah, so they're all involved. I don't know if Mr. Black, if you want to add anything to that right now.
Thank you, Don, Ms. Lowe. We will certainly bring this forward as an agenda item for the next EAC meeting, and council would also like to know that we are proposing to present a report to you in the next month or so regarding curbside pickup and bear-proof containers, and so it's time for us to revisit this whole aspect of managing waste in the community. And so it's timely that this report this item came forward from the CSRD. Thank you, Ben. And we will be responding back to council and the EAC appropriately and timely.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that's fine then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, councillors? All right. Councillor Elliott, you had your hand up.
Yes, Ben, I'm just curious, the non-compliance issues that are going on with the facility, the fines and the penalties, do they eventually transfer down to the city, or is it still remain with the CSRD?
That's an excellent question. One that we pressed the ministry on. We had the ministry participated at a board meeting in August where we posed that exact question. I mean, some of the language in one of the warning letters indicated jail time. And so we were curious who has to go to jail. Is it me, or is it the chair, or is it I think it's a bit of posturing. I don't know that they would actually implement fines, and if it got to that point, I think that we would put up more of a fight. So I'm hoping that, again, it's just posturing. I don't see them going down that road, but if it were to come to that, obviously we would get legal involved and insurance involved, and it would be a bit of an exciting time for me.
Mm-hmm. So has the environmental board just gotten more rigorous, or are they just trying to up the standard for everybody's good?
My thoughts are that, and I was with the province doing that kind of work for quite a while. They went to a different model a few years ago where they started looking at sector by sector. And so they spent a lot of time on the mining and industry type stuff. And then they moved to municipal stuff with a lot of new staff. And so just to provide some context, the person that I deal with for authorization resides in Nanaimo, and his staff member is in Cranbrook, and the compliance fellow is out of Cranbrook, and he reports to a guy in Prince George.
Right.
So it's quite convoluted, and that lack of connection between compliance and authorizations, like I mentioned, I think makes their jobs very difficult. And in the past, it was the same person doing that type of work. So you had a real sense of who was working on the authorization and where you were going, and who was doing the compliance. And it was the same person. You built a relationship with them. We really don't have that relationship. It could be a new person showing up, and they basically show up with almost like issuing a speeding ticket. I mean, if you're over on, our authorization is 18 pages long. And so they go through each clause, and basically you're either in or out. There doesn't seem to be a lot of gray, and there doesn't seem to be, in my opinion, some common sense around what they are finding and what they are reporting out on. And it creates some challenges with neighbors, because it sort of reinforces some of their issues, when the steps that we're taking to try and address those issues, I think, really are over and above in some situations. So that would be that's my personal sense, is that it's a new regime, and they turn over every sort of rock, and we're working with our contractors and trying to be harder on them, but managing a landfill is not an easy job.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, just one more. If there's one issue that you find in terms of the compliance, which do you think it is? Is it the groundwater that's seeping, or the septic, or which do you think is the most pressing for us to be worried about?
Well, there's three things. The most pressing one right now is the septic issue, and us having to close the septic because the province has not authorized it. And they've been to the site over the last 10 years many times and have never raised it as an issue. And I think it was an oversight on their part when they updated our documents. And so me having to tell your local hauler that they can no longer use that facility, I think that's problematic. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of number one on our list. Number two would be the groundwater issues. I mean, landfill has been there for, 30, 40 years now. And it's a naturally attenuating site, because that's what was the standard of the day. And I understand that we've moved away from that, and now new phases of landfills are engineered. But you've got, that Revelstoke site, basically the whole area has refuse or garbage throughout, and you're going to see some impacts off-site. And what we've worked with the province to do now is to come up with what's called a water quality improvement plan, and that'll be a part of the new operational certificate, We'll have to develop that plan with a qualified professional, and we'll have to start really taking, which we already are, but we have to sort of document the steps that we're taking to improve water quality and submit that to the province, rather than the province saying, you've exceeded a level and now you're out of compliance. We know that there's going to be exceedances at the property boundary because we've got garbage there for 40 years. What we need is the proper plans and closing phases out, sealing them off, potentially moving over to the south site and engineering that site, maybe getting out of that north site sooner and going into an engineered landfill where the bottom is lined. And you have those controls in place so that we don't have leachate leaving the site. And again, all those things cost money, and we are looking at our tipping fees to make sure that we've got the money in place to start moving in that direction. And so those are the two key ones, I guess. Immediately would be the septic. Long term is that groundwater piece.
Yeah. So the standard is now to line the pits before you start filling them up, whereas in the past we didn't do that, and that's why the water's seeping through. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, in Salmon Arm, last summer we spent $2.2 million on phase 3. So it's a triple lined cell with leak detection, and we manage that leachate. It doesn't leave the site. It moves away from that natural attenuation. The idea is that the ground below the landfill will remediate the stuff coming through, and you don't have downstream water users. You're in a proper sort of protected area in terms of who are you actually impacting. And I think the province is just moving away from that model, and we're kind of caught in managing a system that was set up not really to meet that model.
So the leachate that does seep out of there eventually ends up in the Columbia from where we are, right?
That's a fair assessment, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Mr. Von Nostrand? Seeing none, okay, thanks, Ben. Appreciate your time. Thanking for coming and for your presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing that waste facility open and running. And now it'll be on us to make sure that you get some product to make it work.
Yeah, again, I thank you for your time, and Mayor Sulz will get you out there to cut the ribbon.
Sounds good.
All righty.
All right, appreciate it. Take care. Thanks, Ben.
See you then. Thank you.
All right, Council, we're going to move on to item 9A, Business Licensing Regulation Amendment Bylaw. This is dealing with the business license and no interest or moving the interest off on that. So if someone want to put this on the table, please. No one wants to move it forward? Councilor Charlotte?
Yeah, I can do that. The Business Licensing and Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 2284 be read a first, second, and third time.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Charlotte, Councilor Juncker. Discussion on the motion. Ms. McCabe, do you want to make any comments on this?
I can, Your Worship. This was at the request of Council. The report was brought to the Finance Committee at their last meeting in December, recommending the deferral of the penalty date for the business licenses for 2021. So normally there'd be a first penalty applied at the first week of January, and then a second penalty applied later. Each would be 5%. And so now what we're recommending is giving businesses until March 31st, and then we would apply the 10% penalty at that point if they're still unpaid.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilors, any comment? Questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item 9A2. Someone want to put that on for me, please? Councilor Charlotte?
That Business Licensing and Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 2284 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion. Councilor Burks-Hill, any further comment? Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to Public Works, Traffic and Highways Amendment Bylaw. This is kind of a housekeeping thing about putting snow or not having snow put in the middle of the street. So if someone want to move that motion forward, please. Councillor Brooks Hill.
That the Traffic and Highways Amendment Bylaw number 2282 be read a first, second, and third time.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Rind. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Juncker.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for Ms. Lowe or whoever about the peace officer part in there. Is that going to supersede all bylaws then? Like this giving, like, because I had been asking for that for a while. I think it's a necessary tool for them to be defined as a peace officer. So now they can legally demand identification from people. They can serve notices and that kind of thing. But it's just a part of the municipal ticket bylaw that's on this resolution. But it doesn't have to be in its own separate bylaw. Like this, that peace officer status will apply to all bylaws now that are enforceable by them.
Your Worship.
Go ahead, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you, Councillor Juncker. Yes, we did have a discussion previously with respect to the peace officer bylaw. That will be coming forward in 2021. And no, this is just to update the definition because it's not the correct definition in this bylaw. So it's updating that, but we will be bringing forward a peace officer bylaw to allow our officers to have more enforcement authority as well. Yes.
Okay, so right now, just to clarify, this is just an update of the definition. We're not changing the status of bylaw officers yet to swear them in as peace officers yet.
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions, Councillor Rind?
Yeah, in the report it says that if the snow is pushed into the existing windrow, if it was pushed into the center of the roadway, that the area after it's been cleared, that they'd have to do an additional pass. I'm just curious, like, how often does this kind of stuff happen currently?
Well, I know on my street, I'll get Mr. Komanowski to weigh in, but on my street, it's a regular occurrence almost every snowfall. Mr. Komanowski?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it happens basically every time that there's, whether it's 5 centimeters or 30 centimeters, we see people pushing out onto the roadways. And the big thing is, I think we explain it in the memo, is sometimes we have such changing weather conditions that you put it in the middle of the road, or a lot of people just put it in the driving lane, and then it freezes. And it's difficult for our operators to deal with, and it's also presents a huge safety hazard for vehicles and pedestrians.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess, like, the claims that come in for vehicle damage, are those just, wear and tear on our vehicles, or are they also claims that other people will make to the city?
Your Worship, yeah, other people will make claims to the city on that. Yeah, same as they would a pothole per se.
Okay, so I guess my question for Ms. McCabe through the chair would be that I'm just curious, like, it mentions here that financial implications would result in cost savings, but it seems like that number should be fairly easy to estimate. Obviously not at the beginning, because we'll have, some people that aren't being compliant and we want to give them some leeway in learning these new rules. But at some point, if this stops happening, this should be a pretty substantial decrease to the cost. Maybe not substantial, but like it will impact the budget in some way. So does anybody have any estimate of what those numbers would look like?
Through Your Worship, not at this point, no. I'd have to work with Mr. Komanowski to come up with what that might look like. And we can do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. I think this is great. I've been all for cracking down on, making sure that snow removal is as simple as possible. It's never going to be simple in Revelstoke, but I think, we do deliver a really good, high quality service compared to a lot of municipalities. So I don't think this is unreasonable to ask, and I'm in full support of this. But I would say that, maybe not in this year coming up, because there will be that learning phase, but in the following year, I would expect to see snow removal costs decrease.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Councillor Charlotte?
Yeah, just with the education for this, because you mentioned at the beginning that it might be a bit of a housekeeping thing, that snow should have been included in this bylaw in the first place. But like you say, it's very common that our residents do push the snow into the roadways. So I think education is going to be really important on this, and positioning that education so that we show people like that we're just trying to cut costs and make it so that we have equitable cost sharing of this, and we're not doing extra snow removal for certain residents. Because yeah, I see it all the time around my place as well. It's a little bit problematic. So I'm looking forward to seeing this come together.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2. Someone want to put that on, please? Councillor Rind?
That the municipal ticket information system amendment bylaw number 2283 be read a first, second, and third time.
Seconder for that motion, please. Councillor Charlotte. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Elliott, you had a question.
Yeah, yes, Gary. Just we want some fairness. I know when the snowbanks get 5 feet high, sometimes the road or just on the edge of the road is the only place to put snow. You just can't get it up over the. I've seen a lot of elderly people just can't throw it up over. I mean, we just want to be have a sense of fairness to it. I mean, if there's no other place to put it, we're not going to penalize, so people will have no other option. I'm just wondering, if that flexibility is going to be with the bylaw officers.
Mr. Komanowski, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, Your Worship. I think what we're trying to achieve here is the obvious, and be fair to especially elderly, and our operators will recognize that. What we're trying to eliminate here is the people that have a 75-foot frontage with a lot of space, or they've got a snow blower, or they're physically capable of dealing with their snow, and they just choose to put it out on the road. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. And we will be reasonable. And I think that we can work with Bylaw as well to be reasonable and form a partnership with them. I think we already have that partnership with them, knowing what's right and what's wrong. And we won't penalize the people who are trying to help themselves.
Yeah, that's great, because I've seen a lot of seniors out just that's the only way they can get it removed. So I just want to make sure we're not hurting those guys too much.
No,
awesome.
We will.
Good.
We'll be careful with that and use some discretion.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all for comments. Anything further? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 11A, staff reports, the ministerial order. Someone want to put that on, and then we'll have a discussion about that. Councillor Yonker.
Yeah, that the excuse me, that the ministerial order from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for the City of Revelstoke by-election scheduled for February 13th, 2021 be approved.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Brooks Hill. Discussion on the motion. Ms. Lowe, do you want to weigh in at all on this ministry order?
Sure, Your Worship. Thank you. This is the ministerial order that I have discussed with Council previously when we set the chief election and deputy election officers. And this order comes from the province and is going to allow us to expand our mail-in ballot voting eligibility. So really encouraging the community, because we have to space out so far with respect to having an in-person vote. We're really encouraging the community to use the mail-in ballots. There's no more eligibility. Previously, you had to be away or not able to attend the actual voting places, and now you can do it whenever you want. Or anybody, sorry, can apply. We're also going to use a voters list, so you won't have to bring your identification unless you're not on the voters list to register to vote. So that just reduces some of the touch points. And we're not going to be holding special voting opportunities going into long-term care facilities our procedure bylaw says that we have to, and this allows us to not hold those special voting opportunities. They don't want us there anyhow, so the mail-in ballot will work better for that. And then we can also do declarations orally instead of signing documents when you're actually going to get your ballot handed to you. So it just eliminates a lot of the touch points. It makes the election safer, COVID safe, and meets the guidelines for conducting the elections provided by the province. So that's what this ministerial order is all about, and I need a council approval to move forward with it.
Great. Councillor Juncker, did you have your hand up? Nope. All right. Any other questions, councillors? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 11B, engineering. Someone want to put that motion on the table? That's dealing with the annual operating agreement with BC Transit. Councillor Charlotte.
Happy to bring this forward, that the annual operating agreement with BC Transit to cost share the provision of transit services in the community for 2020 to 2021 be approved.
Okay, seconder for the motion. Councillor Juncker. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Black, would you like to weigh in and fill us in just a little bit about this, or how do you feel?
Your Worship, I certainly can provide a little bit of background. Typically, these agreements, these AOAs, are entered into in March of every year. Because of COVID, we received a draft AOA, and at that point in time, BC Transit chose to not pursue executing these agreements at that time in March. And due to the fact that likely funding was going to become available from the federal government and the province to help offset some of the costs associated with the pandemic. This amended AOA in front of council for your approval does exactly that. It provides $40,000 approximately to offset lost fare revenue and hopefully makes us whole and consistent with the 5-year operating financial plan and our 5-year budget for transit. And
Wonderful.
That is a brief summary of this report.
Great, thank you. Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you. I just had a question. I was curious if you know approximately of that 168,000 that we get in revenue, what percentage of that comes from student and senior passes? No? Even just a ballpark?
Unfortunately, I cannot, and I look to the finance director for further information. We can certainly come back with you, or come back to council with that information.
I'm just curious because I know we've sort of talked about it casually around this table before, but I would like to see no fees for seniors and students. I know that we are in the middle of reviewing all of our transit with BC Transit and rolling out a better, more comprehensive route. But until then, I think, it's not a huge blow to the revenue if we go that route. And I think it would be really great to offer those groups a free transit service.
Sure. Ms. McCabe, do we not offer seniors, they buy a pass and we refund them their money for transit?
Through your worship, that is, there is a medical pass program that's done through the province where they can get a pass from the province, and I believe they have to have some documents filled out by their doctors. And if they do that, the annual fee is $45, and then the city does refund them that money. So then they do use the buses for free. As far as tracking how much of the fares we're collecting are seniors and students, we could do that from the perspective of where we're selling them the tickets. Like tickets are monthly passes, but if they're paying their fares on the bus, we don't have a way of tracking how much money,
right.
Yeah. So I could
Fair
tell you
enough.
the ticket sales, but a lot of the sales are actually fares on the bus, not ticket sales.
Yeah,
So,
I guess if we have sales that are ticket sales, it might show at least some kind of representation or distribution. I guess too, I'm just curious, like what other councillors have to say about that proposition?
I definitely think that's something that we can look at, and maybe we should be discussing that as we move forward, because I think that's a great idea, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Charlotte and then Councillor Elliott.
Great, thank you. And yes, to Councillor Ryan's point, I agree. I think free passes for seniors and students would be fantastic. It has been discussed around that poverty working group table in the past, and I think that as part of this transit review, we'll see that coming forward as well in the poverty reduction space, or in this case, poverty alleviation. I just wanted to throw in my support behind this. I'm excited to see this go forward, as well as the review that is just getting underway now after all the delays. I think the website is fantastic. It is easier to view on a desktop, but I do encourage everyone to please go and fill that out. I know I'm going to be sharing it out to my network to try and capture that latent ridership, that how many people could we get riding the bus if it suited us better. But I'm excited to see that review come forward and see what will happen in the future for this agreement.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elliott.
Just so the cost that are listed here is $440,000 for the city's portion of the bus service. Is that right?
Ms. McCabe.
Sorry, what was the question, Councillor Elliott?
On the discussion of on the report there's $440,000 that the city contributes to the bus service.
Yes, that is correct.
And that is the net of the $168,000 that's collected?
No, that's the gross amount that we pay to BC Transit, and then the fares that we collect. Plus, we also get money from Interior Health for the Health Connections bus. And then we also use gas tax funding to pay for the leases on the buses. And so, yeah, that's the gross amount that we pay to BC Transit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so BC Transit pays equivalent. They don't get the reduction, or they get 40%, slightly less than that.
I'm not sure how they fund their share of it.
Yeah.
I would assume.
I just watched that bus go around for the last 6-8 months with this COVID thing, and there hasn't been anyone on it, and then there hasn't been any reduction in service. And I'm just saying, my gosh, what a travesty in spending money. That doesn't seem to make sense. I know it's a service that we want to improve upon and have participants use it, but right now we're spending, and it's been that way for a long time, but this year is particularly bad in the number of users. And it seems to me like a $500,000 is a lot of money to throw into something that's not really working the way it should.
Yeah, and so making that bus route and making that work is really what we need to focus on to make that go. So, Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Juncker.
Thanks. So I know that making decisions kind of right when we have the AOA in front of us is maybe not the best idea, and happy to not do that. But I would be interested, given that we are doing the transit review, to hear council and staff's thoughts if we were to reduce the fee to zero for seniors and staff, because long term, I guess what I'm hearing from Councillor Elliott and others is that we're not seeing a ton of use right now with the existing service, but maybe if we had it, a little stick like it's free, like encouraging people to use it, then we might actually get much better feedback about how to improve the service, because I think so many people avoid using it right now because they're like, well, it doesn't go where I need it to. But maybe if it was free, it would encourage them to use the bus and check it out and provide more valuable feedback and understand how it all works. So I'm curious what other people think about that, because I don't think that that's, it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. We can try this for a year and see how it goes, and that wouldn't be the biggest financial impact.
Okay, so I'm going to get Councillor Juncker to make a comment, and then Ms. Braun is going to weigh in.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would say just a couple things. Like one, it's like Councillor Charlotte said, it's super exciting to see this finally come to fruition. And the survey I thought was really well done. It's super cool with the links and the dropping the pins. And reading through like all their questions, like we've heard this, what do you think, and the ranking. So really well done there. I think to Councillor Ryan's point, while I definitely agree with the idea, I think it's best personally just to wait. And the reason, well, while this is going on, sorry, the reason why I say that is just because I noted in the survey thing that I filled out, and hopefully we all have already, one of the things is obviously the proposals are a lot of increasing of services. So bigger routes, longer hours, running on Sundays. So, which I'm in full support of, and I love like seeing the route to the ski hill and going through Arrow Heights, which people have been complaining about for 30 years. So I would prefer to just wait and see if we go forward based on the community consultation. What do the new costs look like for this increased service? Then based on that, what is the ridership we garner from those new routes? And then look at the actual true costs of then. Because once we do this service review, we're probably realistically not going to see another one for probably 10 years. So I just think in the midst of it, let's just hold off. But I mean, if we want to talk later in a few months or something, I would definitely support, like some communities I've just noted are trying trial phases, Councillor Ryan, like they'll do like free weekends kind of thing to try that out, see if it works, right? So maybe it's free Saturdays or something. I'm not sure, but I think just in the general right now, we should probably just wait until we get through this. But I do support the idea in the long run. Also, I would just note, Mr. Mayor, that the province has also said one of their goals, hopefully they accomplish in the next 4 years, is to do that province-wide.
Perfect. Good. All right, Ms. Braun.
Yes, I can just speak to some of these through your worship. So the point of the service review is to gather broad input on how we can improve the service overall, but also in the process of that to increase or to reach our latent ridership and try to increase interest in it. So we had a meeting just the other day with BC Transit and Mr. Black and members of our Collective Impact Transportation Action Team, and they are rallying to help us distribute the survey and get it out as wide and far as we can. So far, it's been distributed, for instance, to the Preserve Our Winters and our Preserve Our Wilderness, to a lot of different groups, including Kootenai Car Share. It's going in person as a poster forum to seniors' homes, community connections, hospitals, dental offices, medical clinics, and being sent out through all of our social network contacts, basically. So one thing that BC Transit noticed is that the response rate since it's been launched on Friday was something like 120 responses, I believe, which actually is really good for these kinds of surveys, especially at this point. So I think we're going to not only engage a lot more people by having this really interactive, fun program, but we'll get some really good feedback that then we would bring back to discussion with the Transportation Action Team and then ultimately to Council to look at some of the low-hanging fruit changes we can make in the short term versus longer term policy changes around fares. I'd also note that one of the key ideas here is to combine the shuttle service with the transit services, and that will definitely help our bottom line because the shuttle service is well attended, lots of income coming from that. Another savings down the road may be that even the task of collecting the change that comes in from users, everything Revelstoke has pointed out, may offset the time it takes to count that money and report on that money, may actually offset some of the reduced fares if we did decide to do that. So there's a lot of different moving parts, and I think this survey is going to give us some really, really good feedback. And then I think the Transportation Action Team through Collective Impact will have a lot to say about how they can improve ridership and improve services both.
Great. Thank you for that. Any further comments? Councillor Brooks-Hill.
I just wanted to say that I support Councillor Ryan's proposal, especially just for reducing fares, especially during COVID. In general, it's lower income people who are taking the bus, and it's one way that the city can directly help its residents by reducing the cost of transportation. And if we did it for a short term, thing. Getting people in the habit of using the transit system, it's, you know, especially with students, getting people in the habit of using public transportation young will give us more riders in the future.
Okay. Councillor Juncker, and then I'll go back to Ms. Braun.
Just one question to Councillor Brooks Hill's point. Do the majority of our low-income residents not qualify? Didn't we just grant like a few thousand bus passes again to Community Connections so they can provide free transit to all of our low-income residents?
Through your worship, it's Ingrid. Yes, that's correct. We do have an opportunity right now to provide free bus passes.
Yeah,
but
that's
not
okay.
fully subscribed.
Sorry?
It's not fully subscribed. We could certainly do a better job at promoting that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I was just gonna say, like, because I remember just a few months ago we did the passes to Community Connections, a few thousand again. But I don't think it's. I mean, obviously, yeah. I just think we could do a better job at selling it. But my understanding was anybody that qualified as low income, which we want to bring everybody out of that. But right now they qualify for free transit through Community Connections.
Good.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Good.
thanks.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay, I think we're going to vote on this motion. We definitely want to visit what Councillor Ryan is talking about, but we definitely want to talk to Ms. Braun and the transit people in our engineering department who look after this and make sure that we're doing the right thing. But I think that's appropriate as we move forward. So on the motion that's on the table, all in favor?
Sorry, Gary, just one comment.
Okay.
The AOA has to be signed before January 31st. So are you suggesting that conversation happens before January 31st?
Ms. Braun, will signing this without changing the fee schedule for seniors and whatnot have any bearing on signing this AOA?
I'm not sure I can answer that question correctly. It might be a question for Mr. Black.
Through your worship, the agreement as it's presented in front of you needs to be executed before the end of the month in order for us to receive the fresh start funding to offset the lost revenue. As described by council, we will certainly come back with the findings of all the survey work and can certainly provide information regarding all of the fund sources, our best determination of users, and the impacts of providing additional free service to the community as you have so asked us to do. And so I would ask that you give us 3 months or so to distill the information that's going to be received by BC Transit, and the next AOA for 21-22 should be coming out in March. And so we will be able to come back to you at that time and provide more information.
Okay, great. Does that answer your question,
Okay,
Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. All right.
One other comment I can make is that I believe that signing the AOA does not prevent us from, for instance, doing something similar or increasing the program we have with Community Connections to provide more free passes.
All right.
We can do that irrespective of whether they have the AOA signed. So.
Okay, thank you for that input. Appreciate that. We just don't want to lose out on this, and that's why Councillor Ryan's asking. All right, for motion 11B1, all in favor?
Actually, Gary.
Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
No, I just Jackie mentioned low income and elderly as a possibility for the transit use or some kind of discounted program for them or no fee. If you will really look beyond that, I'm thinking changing the transportation habits of our community, and it doesn't defer to seniors. It just means we need to figure out a better way to move people through our town, and transit system, everything, Revelstoke, all our parking, all those things come together. They can't be looked at in isolation. They have to be. If we want to change the way people move, then we need a comprehensive review of it, and that comes down to the transportation plan. And I know, Steve, you're working on that, but any idea when that might unfold?
Through your worship, Councillor Elliott, the request for proposals is out into the consulting community at this point in time. We are expecting to close and receive the RFPs or the proposals sometime near the end of this month, and I would expect to come back to council in the second meeting in February to award the contract for that transportation master plan work. And then we will undertake that as all of these items feed into the OCP and creating the policies and directives that will help achieve the goal that you have described.
Mm-hmm. And does committing to this year contract, does that jeopardize anything, or does that put us into something that we probably shouldn't get committed to, or what's your thought?
Through your worship, no, this will have no impact on the future of our transit system, but the master plan will help determine optimal operational characteristics in addition to addressing parking, active transportation networks.
Yes.
All of those components will then help feed multimodal operations for moving people around the community.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 2 of that 11B. Someone want to put that on the table, please? Councillor Charlotte.
That the Chief Administrative Officer and the Mayor be authorized to sign the AOA for 2020-2021.
Is there a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Elliott. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 11C, Liquid Waste Management Plan Committee appointment. So there is a liquid waste management plan going forward. So just before we ask if there's any councillors that want to sit on that, Mr. Black, do you want to weigh in and speak to that at all?
Through your worship, just to be clear that council representation on this committee is very, very important, as the potential financial impacts to the community can be very large, as the direction that the program may take will determine the long-term costs of improvements for our wastewater treatment plant, including mitigations of the odor, staffing, and those sorts of things. So I'm very keen to have a counselor on this committee to help provide guidance and direction. Lastly, the commitment is, as described in the report, 3 to 6 meetings. I would anticipate every other week we will have an online virtual meeting in order to move this forward. We anticipate this program, if we can get all of our ducks in a row and proceed as quickly as possible, to be complete with us within 5 to 6 months.
Great. All right. So, councillors, is there one of you that would like to sit on this committee as it moves forward, making a commitment for the next 5 to 6 months regarding this? Councillor Elliott? Any opposition to Councillor Elliott sitting on this for the next 5 to 6 months? Councillor Elliott, you had your hand up, so you just volunteered, is that correct? You're muted. I can't hear you cussing, so you're muted.
If there's any opposition, I'll step down.
Okay, so if someone want to put this motion on the table and just insert Councillor Elliott's name, and then we'll vote on that. Councillor Brooks Hill.
That Councillor Elliott be appointed to the Liquid Waste Management Plan Combined Technical Public Advisory Group.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Charlotte. Any further discussion on the motion before Councillor Elliott gets cold feet? Those want to make all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, Councillor Elliott, congratulations and thank you for stepping up. Appreciate that. We're going to go on to the leased property agreement with the library. If someone want to put that motion on the table, please. Councillor Brooks Hill.
That council give notice of their intention to dispose of an interest in a portion of the Revelstoke Community Centre building comprising of 3,430 square feet by way of a lease with the Okanagan Regional Library for the purpose of a community library legally described as in the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. Seconder for the motion. Councillor Charlotte. Any discussion on the motion? That's basically leasing the existing library space to the library again. And it will go from now, January 2021, to the end of December 2023 in the amount of $32,585 annually to be paid in monthly increments. Councillor Brooks Hill, your name lit up. Do you have a question or comment?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Any comments or questions? I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence, SILGA is now asking for resolutions. Usually we try to put 1 or 2 resolutions forward. 1 or 2 is optimal. So Ms. Lowe's talked to the staff about coming up with something and just wanted to give the council a chance to do the same. Is there any comments that anyone wants to make at this time regarding this? Councillor Charlotte?
Yeah, thank you. I've recently joined the Climate Caucus. It's a group for discussion around municipal work around climate action. And one of the committees I just went to a meeting on is working on some draft resolutions that I thought was pretty interesting. I was curious to hear the rest of council's take on it. One of them is around the right to repair. One is around construction waste, and one is around the circular economy and pushing the province to take more action on circular economy rather than just talking about it. So just really encouraging more funding. It's been great to see the stuff that has been happening through Clean BC, but it'll be interesting to see how those resolutions get firmed up. Right now, they're definitely in draft form. They're working with a few different non-government organizations to work on the wording. I think the one that really got me thinking was the right to repair, just especially through my business experience, just having people having to replace machines because one particular part got broken and there is no instructions or it is very difficult to repair. So to try and reduce that impact on our landfill and cut back on the amount of things that are going there, I think the intent of the resolution is to start with bulky appliances like washers and dryers. So I'm just curious as to the interest of the rest of council, if I should pursue and try to bring those draft forms back here for further discussion.
Any comments, councillors? I think, yep. Councillor Ryan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but I would be interested in seeing that. I think that's great. I think the right to repair sounds really interesting. And I've always thought, what a shame that, 95% of this appliance works just fine, but everybody's just throwing them out. I mean, I think everybody's had that thought. So yeah, I'm curious to read more about, what that would look like. And yeah, definitely.
Okay. So Councillor Charlotte, if you want to bring that back so that we can have that discussion and see how that works. Ms. Lowe, you're going to weigh in. What's our timeline on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, Councillor Charlotte, if you'd like to, whoever you're working with, if you have a draft, work with me and we can, because I just know the format for SILGA. And I believe this is February 26th that has to be, the meeting for receipt of resolutions is February. So it'll be well before that.
Yes.
And we will get council vote on it. So probably we have a meeting on the 9th and the 23rd in February. So if you want to work with me, we can, if the rest of council is into that, we'll do that.
Yeah, I'll get in touch. I think there's several other councillors around the province that are working on this as well. There's been some great feedback already in the discussion. So it sounds like it might be able to come at various different regional organizations at the same time. So I'll loop you into that conversation. We'll get that rolling.
Beautiful.
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. And then councillors, if there's any of you that something else comes up that you want to discuss, by all means, bring it forward. You can contact Ms. Lowe, but also let's have a discussion on it and make sure that we've got something that's appropriate and robust to go forward to SILGA. All right, moving on to SILGA's Community Excellence Awards. Ms. Braun, are you still with us? Do you want to weigh in on this at all?
Sorry, yes. Yes, we have a couple of different ideas that we're pursuing with staff. One is to look at our recovery task force work, which is pretty progressive compared to other communities. You know, we've pulled together some really key stakeholders quickly, responded to a wide range of issues, and have had really good feedback and support from the community at large. Another issue that would be interesting to submit is a piece of that, and that's our community wellness survey. Again, quite precedent setting. There's no other community, to my knowledge, in BC that's done something quite as comprehensive and has such a good turnout. We've had about 1,200 responses, I believe, to date, which is significant. And we're going to be looking at those results and starting to roll out communications around that. So either or both of those could be submitted.
Awesome. All right. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you again, Ms. Braun. Appreciate that. We'll continue to just engage a little bit on that with you as to how we move forward. Item number C is City of Nelson vaccination priority. So Ms. Lowe spoke to me about that this past week, and has spoke to our fire chief, and I have also spoke with Interior Health. And this is basically asking for vaccination priority for our first responders and our fire rescue. Pardon me.
Your
which
worship.
I still consider first responders. I'll let you speak.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The letter itself from Nelson actually didn't include first responders or the fire services. And so when I spoke to Nelson and asked why that wasn't included, they said it was probably an oversight and encouraged us to write in as well. And I will, with your permission, let Stephen DeRossi, our fire chief, just talk a little further on that for council.
All right, Chief DeRossi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so I got the letter as well and read it through. And I'd like to also echo the City of Nelson in acknowledging the amount of effort the province has put into developing the vaccination distribution process. And as Ms. Lowe has mentioned, the oversight of including the first responders or perhaps the essential workers, the critical infrastructure, and of course local government, that's all required to keep the communities operating. So it just appears that BC has not included the public safety and critical essential workers in their priority plans. And that's sort of deviated a little bit from Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization. They had a different recommendation that did include the critical and essential workers in their national immunization plan. That is available at the Government of Canada website. I'm not sure exactly what the link is there, but it's available there for you should you wish to pursue that. So yeah, we believe the BC government should prioritize the workers who provide those essential and critical services that are considered essential to the preservation of life, health, and basic societal functioning of the residents and visitors of BC, actually, even though I know we're not supposed to travel, but they are here. And I think from our perspective, the critical functions that are performed by the municipal government and the municipal firefighters and volunteers and first responders, let's put police in there as well. And anyone that's performing or providing or maintaining that critical public infrastructure, and they're the ones that maintain the safety and security of the infrastructure and the resources that the people rely on there for their basic health and safety needs every day. So what I've come up with and my thoughts are, if we reach out to the BC government, requesting as vaccine supplies permit that public safety, emergency, and critical service workers should be included in the first groups of priority vaccinations to ensure that we can continue to provide that community public service and infrastructure that people rely on every day. You can imagine if COVID managed to get, or any infectious disease managed to get past our precautions, then what could happen is a fire service, for example, or the police service may not be able to respond effectively and fully to the needs of the communities. And in fires, a typical residential fire expects 15 minimum responders on scene to be effective at managing that fire. So being that we only have 31, 32 at the moment, if half of them were out and half of them weren't able to respond, we might not be as effective as we'd like to be. So that's where our opinion lies.
Great, thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. So I had a conversation with Interior Health yesterday, Mr. Harding, and he asked how the rollout would go and what's going to happen. We talked briefly about this, and he said it's political. So we need to get this letter to the government as quickly as possible so that we can see if we can get our infrastructure secure as far as vaccinations go. So we're asking for everyone's support in this and being able to write this letter to move it forward to the government to see how quickly we can get vaccinations into the arms of our fire rescue people and the people that do our jobs every day to keep our water running and our sewers moving and that sort of thing. So, so I'm going to ask if I have support of council for this letter. So if you could raise your hand, please. Okay, that's unanimous, Ms. Lowe. So do you need a resolution, or Councillor Juncker, you have a question?
Yeah.
You're muted. Councillor, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just saying I support this. I just had a question about the fire department with the COVID, that's all.
Okay, do you want to ask that question and then we'll move on?
Just a question, Chief. With the training, I know you guys were doing training on Wednesdays online again, and now I believe I heard that it's moved back in person. Are you guys doing training in bubbles, or are all your volunteers getting together, as many come out to training in one group again?
Through your worship, yes, thank you, Councillor. The fire department is training both online and in person. So depending on what the current topic is, there's different topics for the new recruits, the current firefighters, the maintenance crew, and the career staff. So there are separations in the training groups, and we're looking at, we call it company level training. So a company would be a truck company, it would be 6 people in that company. So we're looking at keeping our training groups into 6, hopefully 6 or less. That could include an instructor, and then keeping those groups somewhat separate. They may be doing the same particular topic, but they're not necessarily training in the same group. They might be in the same building or same area together, keeping their masks up and social distancing and all that.
Thanks.
All right. Great. Thanks, Councillor. Okay, I'm going to ask for a resolution. If someone would put a resolution on the table to support a letter being written, and someone second it, and then we can move on. So Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Charlotte, will write a letter to the provincial government, and we'll move forward. Everyone's already given unanimous approval, so thank you, Council, for that. So we're going to move on now to communications. We've got a letter from people.
Sorry, Gary.
Councillor Elliott.
Just Ingrid, on the last item there, Ingrid mentioned about the recovery task force. Is there any way we could get a summary of the sort of long-term actions that are being developed by that task force, so we're aware or what we can do to support it?
Definitely.
Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Definitely. We have produced newsletters, and I think it might be a good idea to maybe make a presentation to Committee of the Whole, just to kind of recap everything we've accomplished to date with that.
Yeah, the intermediate and the long-term sort of plan, where we can do and what we can enact to help the cause.
Yes, I think our efforts right now are focused on with what we've done to date, in addition to continuing to provide those business supports and streamline communications, as well as on the community side, making sure that we have information available to community members as a result of our wellness survey as to where they can get help, how they can support each other through this. And that's pretty much as we're able to do. There's a few other irons in the fire, just in response to the local, more recent clusters, but we'll discuss that at next week's meeting and bring that back to council if appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Do we not start, has there been discussion about sort of building an like a marketing fund or building some resources to get on the marketing wagon once things improve?
Are you speaking about tourism marketing specifically?
Well, just in general, if that's one of our key industries, then maybe, how do we make it recover? How do we help it, help it?
Yes, there's a huge amount of resources dedicated to helping tourism recover. All of their advertising for now, for instance, is focused on memories and being ready to plan your trip in the future. But as soon as we have the go-ahead from the provincial health officer, we're ready to kick into high gear with the tourism marketing, as well as working with the Chamber and Community Futures to support how we can continue to promote our businesses and their recovery.
All right, Ms. Lowe, you still have your hand up. Do you have any comment?
No, Your Worship, that was from previously. That's fine. Thank you.
All right.
We will, Councillor Elliott, be bringing forward an update. We're meeting again next week, the Recovery Task Force. We've had a little bit of a break for Christmas, and we'll be discussing what we'll be doing moving forward. So we can once we have something, we'll bring it forward to council.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Good. We're going to move on to communications. Canada Pharmacare Act. We have a letter from Peter Julian, the NDP House Leader, thanking us for support, asking for healthcare or pharmacare for all people in all across the country. So, any comments from councillors on that? Seeing none, we have Finance Committee meetings from December 9th. Any comments on that? Okay, BC Transit Public Engagement Plan for Revelstoke Transit System. Ms. Braun, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, I think I spoke to most of this already, but just to say that, sorry, I didn't realize it was a separate agenda item. Yes, I think we are well on hand to do some pretty effective engagement, and I just want to, shout out and recognize BC Transit, who did everything we asked them to, and prepared a really great interactive map and opportunity to, kind of click in your preferred stops and your preferred routes and additional service. And I think it's a really great interactive tool. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, we are producing paper copies of the survey to get them to waiting rooms in medical centers, to seniors facilities, that kind of thing. So we've got a very good engagement plan that we just finalized yesterday. So nothing's written up yet, but I can share that in future as well as the results start coming in.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Any further comments on that? Okay, I'm going to go to questions from the press. Ms. Floyd, Ms. Rousseau, do we have any questions from the press? Or we'll just wait for to see if they sign on.
None have been submitted yet. So I said in the email that we would wait 2 minutes.
All right, so if you could keep track of that for us, and then we'll move in camera.
Okay, Your Worship, you should be good to go now.
All right, so no questions from the press. So I'd like to move in camera pursuant to section 90.1A of the Community Charter, moved by Councillor Brooks Hill, seconded by Councillor Rind. All in favor? Motion's carried. We're going to move in camera. We're going to take a couple-minute break and then we'll come back out. Ms. Lowe, if you could